Hi, everybody. On today's episode of Dieline DECODED, Jamie Gandee of independent design agency Bulletproof will decode the design process behind Cadbury Mini Eggs. You'll learn how Bulletproof redesigned the icon of Easter by capturing the intrinsic feeling of happy Easter memories in the brand's new visual identity. Jamie Gandee is creative director at the London studio of Bulletproof, bringing almost 20 years of experience in both brand design and advertising. Jamie is passionate about producing iconic design that is strategically grounded in big ideas. He's worked with global clients, including PepsiCo, Unilever, and Mondelez, where he was instrumental in the global redesign of Cadbury Dairy Milk. Please give a big welcome to Jamie Gandee.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Gandee, and I am a creative director at an agency called Bulletproof in London, England. And I'm talking to you from my little shed in the garden because apparently there is a global pandemic, and this is where I've been for that entire time. That's not actually technically true because we moved. So I'm glad not to be in my bedroom in my pants. I'm going to chat to you today about Cadbury, and specifically Cadbury Mini Eggs. First, before I do that, there's just a little bit about Bulletproof that I thought you might find interesting. Bulletproof is basically, for those that don't know, it's a brand design agency. We were set up about 23, 24 years ago by these two handsome chaps, two really close friends, Gush Monday on the right and Johnny Stewart on the left, who went to college together, not far away from where I grew up in Northwest London. And the name Bulletproof came from basically when they were presenting work to their tutor, who was renowned for being pretty tough. If the ideas were not seen as being indestructible or impenetrable, easy for me to say, or bulletproof, they would have to go back to the drawing board and start again. So that's where the name came from. So it came from college, which is quite a nice little story, really. What do? Well, we bulletproof brands. We exist to vanquish mediocrity, to make brands more commercially successful through great ideas and through bulletproof creativity. We're about 300 strong. We have offices in London, in Amsterdam, in New York City. They've got a great space there. Singapore, Sydney, and hot off the press, Shanghai, which is really exciting. We're independent. We're not owned by anyone, and we're progressive. We can do what we want because we're independent, which is super fun. We have some things we believe in as an agency. We believe in the fact that great ideas truly change the world. We believe that people that are part of the Bulletproof tribe do make a true difference. And you see that on a daily basis. We're some really inspirational people. It's great to be a part of. The one that always sort of sticks in my mind is actually the idea about staying naive and sort of intelligent naivety, which is all about just being curious and staying open-minded to new possibilities. And the more you do that, and I found this, the more you do that, and the more you are accepting of new things, you get to better creative spaces, better creative results. Basically, it makes the creative better and the creative process better. So I really believe in that one. It's great, just not being dogmatic to clients. Working with people and being collaborative. That's what we're all about. It's certainly what I'm all about. And we've been busy with some brands globally, and some of which are smaller, some of which are massive. This is Villa Ascenti. We created it alongside Diageo. It's a new to world premium Italian gin. It's got a great story behind it, and that was a whole sort of brand world piece, packaging. Visual identity, the lot, beautiful design and packaging by one of the other guys in the team, a guy called Eco. It's brilliant work. My other baby away from Cadbury was the Football Association of Wales. Football or soccer is obviously massive here, and it's huge in Wales, and they've done a great job of going, 100 and whatever they were in the world, up to 16th from the Euros in 2016. We're just building on that and turning them from like a badge to a true brand, where they can compete globally. So it's all about breathing new fire into one of the oldest footballing nations that exists. Tim Hortons, which was all about creating an asset for Tim's that basically brings the pride of Canada, together in the form of the maple leaf, which actually, as they expand and go into other territories and get more of a global audience, it gives consumers and people a greater understanding of where they're from and what they're about. So it's a provenance-led, cohesive device. White Claw, we brought this into the world. It's a truly iconic brand now. It's hugely successful, and I guess we're responsible for bringing that into the world. So I think we're super proud of that one. And on the more boutique side, Soapsmith, which is a handcrafted luxury scent brand made in and inspired by the sights and sounds of London town. So some beautiful illustration and artistry involved in that brand. So check those out. I think most of those are on our website. A bit about me, but not too much. I have almost 20 years experience in both brand and advertising, which makes my career roughly the same age as the car boat, which I think we can all agree was very successful. The PowerMat G5, which I once dropped on my foot with all its weight and still feel the effects of, 50 cents in the club, and Greta Thunberg, who I think's done pretty well for herself in that time. And of course, almost 20 years ago now, this was me in New York with one of my best mates, sporting that haircut, which I have to say I actually genuinely still quite like. It was this kind of sort of like full mullet thing I was really into. I'd really like to do it again someday, but my wife might divorce me. What I stand for, what I believe in, I'm kind of worryingly passionate about producing iconic design for iconic brands that's strategically grounded in this sort of big, explosive mushroom cloud of a big idea. That's something that's really important to me. It's got to have a big idea. And a side note, Grace, our head of brand, sent Jess at the Dieline a quick message asking if I can swear through this, which is very exciting. I'll try not to, but it's good to know I can. And through my career, I've worked with some really big global clients, including PepsiCo, Mars, Heineken, Unilever, Mondelez. There's supposed to be an accent on the E somewhere, but I couldn't find the button for Mondelez. And plenty more, to be honest. Diageo and Coke, controversially. This is actually me in Barrio Condesa in Mexico with Heineken, and Heineken client being on the left, and we had been out drinking all day, and I was really struggling in this picture. You can't really see it, but I think if you zoom in, that's the face of somebody who's about to be violently ill, which I was about 5 or 6 minutes after that photo. So if you ever see me pull that face, stay well clear. Outside of work, I'm into all sorts of random crap. I'm a collector. I have a fear of needles, but I'm covered in tattoo. I collect anything from old works of fiction to Ouija board planchettes, and have an obsession with David Bowie, which you can probably see behind me. And the walls are covered in David Bowie vinyl. It's a bit weird, actually. I'm into lots of stuff, and it's all quite random. But the main takeout that you must remember is that I probably need slightly looser jeans. That's me falling off a post, again in New York. So let's talk Cadbury. This is what we're here for. No one wants to know about me. Before we talk about mini eggs, it's really important just to set the scene a little bit on the wider Cadbury brand, which we spent the last 2 or nearly 3 years repositioning and rebranding globally through all the markets that it exists in. It's absolutely massive in India, in Australia, huge in the UK, exists in America. It's big in Canada. So it really does exist all around the world. Menap. So yeah, it's one of the truly iconic brands that you could ever work on, and it's been very humbling to be able to work on it and do what we've done on it. And I'm very proud of it. Also, a bit of a plug. You can find the interview that we did with my boss, the CCO of Bulletproof, Nick Reese, on the Dieline. It was with Teresa Christine, and it was about a year ago. So that was super fun as well. So what was the ask on Cadbury when we came to rebrand it? It was about reimagining Cadbury. And it was about reimagining Cadbury to reflect VCCP's advertising. And it was advertising that genuinely was making people cry. It was bringing meaning back to Cadbury. Our task was to create a sensory brand world that was designed to communicate really a visceral expression of the brand at every single touch point, living, breathing, sort of multi-sensorial ecosystem of Cadburyness. So a bit of an ask and a bit of a tall order, but one that we absolutely jumped at with both hands and really wanted to do. And we actually needed to work with Cadbury. They had a new purpose that was all about inspiring a little more Cadbury goodness in the world, which is a lovely purpose that's super true to the brand. And as we found out more to the brand, the more we realized it was true. So it's an amazing purpose. And we believe at Bulletproof in purpose-driven, creative, that you can express, that you can draw. So everything we do ladders up to the purpose. So what's great about that purpose is that it reflects the heritage of Cadbury without being tied to it, without being reverent to it, without being old-fashioned. So really inspiring to work with. What do they want? Nice and simple, iconic design derived from a tangible idea, actionable at every brand touch point, derived from a huge mushroom cloud of an idea, as I was saying, and a visceral sensory brand world. So they didn't want much. And weirdly, it didn't seem that daunting. We were so up for it. We just wanted to, this is such a huge iconic brand. We grew up with it. Really, really inspirational. So, what wasn't to love for us? And for Cadbury, the times are changing. They needed to move from this world of sort of what is now seen, I guess, as superficial joy. This was their positioning before goodness, before generosity. It's all about joy. You would have seen the drumming gorilla ad. If anyone hasn't seen that, go on YouTube and find it. It was basically a redefined, I think, a generation of advertising. I think it's fair to say. Hugely successful. They never quite reached the peak of that again. And for me, the world of joy and hyperbole, although super fun and super relevant for Cadbury at the time, and they needed to inject that fun into Cadbury. It was kind of always only skin deep. It's not truly ownable, and I really believe that. That's my opinion. Probably no one else's. So it was something, after 10, 13 years of this, actually, consumers, I think, through lots of research and lots of talking, was basically consumers need something a bit more substantial. They need more stories. They need, relevancy, and they need connection. And that was something that was scoring quite low at Cadbury at the time. Meaning for Cadbury wasn't quite what it should be. And our job was to make Cadbury more credible and to bring meaning, real meaning, and also taste appeal back to the brand. So those three sort of tick boxes were really important in terms of forming our brief. So we uncovered a collective truth that basically bound all of Cadbury together for us, and it was the goodness within Cadbury. There's goodness within the company all the way through its history. The pioneer, John Cadbury, the founder of Cadbury, I think Cadbury was founded in something like 1826, 1824, something like that. He was a Quaker. He was a good man. He basically made the first model village ever, I think, in Bourneville in Birmingham, which I'll go into in a second. He didn't employ children, which was a thing then. He didn't make people work on Sundays, which was a thing then in the UK. He also, I think, founded one of the first companies that was basically almost like it's an animal welfare. So it was like preceded Peter. that again wasn't really a thing back then in the 1800s. You know, life was tough generally, and he wanted to instill these beliefs that, you know, Quaker beliefs basically, and therefore to spread a little bit of goodness to his employees and the community and the people around him and the people that he was making his products for. And it was drinking chocolate at the time, and it probably tasted disgusting. There's goodness in the people at Cadbury. They have a commitment to their craft, whether they're at the farm, or whether they are part of you know, the huge network of Mondelez, whether they're in the factory, whether they're in the, you know, in the trucks delivering the good. There's commitment everywhere we saw, and we did a lot of research, and there's commitment to their craft in everything. It was good throughout that company. And also the product. It's made with the finest ingredients. They've just never really talked about it at Cadbury. It's really good chocolate. Let's chat about that. Let's talk about it. It's goodness within Cadbury. And we wanted to express goodness through the idea of generosity through our sensory brand world. There's something really nice about the idea of generosity. There's this sort of, I guess, functional side of it, which is a glass. Every bar is made with a glass and a half of milk, which means it has you know, more quality. It's made better, but there's also this really nice emotional side to it, where, you know, it becomes a metaphor for, you know, thinking with that extra half. And I think that's really true with everything we've just been through over the last year and a half. You know, with COVID, you know, you think about people with that extra little half, you know, that extra little sort of generous, you know, nod. And that is true to the actions of John Cadbury all the way back. So we found this sort of connection that, you know, actually Cadbury can actually live in the spirit of John Cadbury, but just in a super modern, super visionary way. So we can still be super visionary. We don't have to be, you know, tied to the past, but it's great to have that grounding, and it really gave us a lot of anchor points for us to be able to do something like mini eggs. And that takes us to what I'm supposed to be talking about. So for mini eggs specifically, you know, and Cadbury at a sort of a wider level, it's the chocolate that memories are made of. No matter where you're from in the world, you think that Cadbury's yours, you're quite precious about it. You know, we redesigned Cadbury, and my mum definitely has an opinion on it. Everyone has an opinion on it, which makes it really, really hard to redesign and rebrand, because there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like it. There's always going to be someone that loves it. There's always going to be someone that doesn't like it. And that's fine, because everyone's, you know, that's what it's all about. That's the great thing about design. It gets people talking. And for us, you know, if Cadbury is the chocolate that memories are made of, then mini eggs are the chocolates that memories of Easter are made of. And they've always been synonymous with Easter. It's a huge deal in many countries, and it's no exception in the UK. We have a 4-day national holiday. It's, you know, predominantly historically a Christian country, and Easter is massive here. It's huge. All the shelves get cleared, and, you know, it's a huge Easter takeover.
My mini eggs give you a chocolate experience that is so special. Although Easter isn't here yet, Cadbury's mini eggs are. So discover for yourself which comes first, the bunnies or the eggs.
So hopefully the sound worked on that. I would quite like a pack that rabbits haven't touched, please. But it has this sort of amazing, interesting, quirky history, if not slightly unsanitary. That was from, you know, when I was a baby, you know, 1983. Yeah, I am that old, believe it or not. Which came first, the bunny or the egg? You know, huge ad campaign, really quite weird. But you can see the links to Easter and spring and hope and bunnies, and you can see where it came from. What I really do remember is this advertising.
Everyone's talking about them.
Which is crazy, and I love it. Mr. Cadbury's parrot, and I remember him. I think we're sort of bringing him back here and there through plush toy form. He was great, and he was bonkers, and lots of advertising like that made Cadbury super fun, and great memories of it growing up when I was a kid. Literally attacking someone on a you know, almost like Good Morning Britain type show thing. Really, really funny. The The current packs globally look like this. There's a lot of sort of incoherency in the UK, and it's actually because there are specific requests from those countries and specific needs and specific seasonal cues that are slightly different across the world, right? So UK was the focus for mini eggs for us. This was the current pack. Canada, it's mainly purple, lots of sort of patterns over it. I think it's the #1 in Canada in terms of seasonal, chocolate treat. And then in ANZ, which is Australia and New Zealand, it's not a million miles away in terms of sort of distinctive memory structures from the UK. So interesting to see where they kind of were. So we needed to reposition mini eggs. We need to sort of say, okay, Cadbury had this sort of consistent visual egg explosion, approach that had to do it once, approach that linked sort of directly to Easter. And with a shift of brand positioning away from joy, as I was saying, and an option maybe to open up the season to all year round, why not? We felt we needed to say goodbye to the representation of product, and or at least not treat it as the main thing on pack, and root ourselves in an idea that was much closer to the core of what Cadbury needed to be about. And what does it mean to people? What do mini eggs mean to people? Certainly in the UK, hunting for eggs is a tradition that dates back all the way back to 15th, 16th century. People have been doing that for a long, long, long time. Easter isn't just about eggs; it's about coming together in a real way. As a lot of these, seasonal things, and Thanksgiving, which we're about to have in the Christmas. It's all about getting together. That's what it's really about. Something Cadbury has tapped into over time, and it's taken a long, long time. Cadbury have been around for a very long time, so they do it at Easter, they do it at Christmas. So we were well on the way to owning Easter, but with goodness and generosity in the mix, there was a real opportunity to dial up the natural optimism that surrounds Easter, with an emphasis on the word more natural, I think it's fair to say. So one of the first things we did for Cadbury was we went to Bourneville, we went to Birmingham in the UK. We did it for Cadbury. We also then did it separately for mini eggs, and every project we can get. It's actually closed at the moment for COVID, which is a real shame because it's fascinating. And I talked about it to you guys at Dieline before when we were chatting through Cadbury, but I think I said at the time something like it's like stepping into your childhood a little bit. There's just stuff in in rooms and rooms of just amazing history, and we've got an amazing historian there called Sarah Foden, who just knows absolutely everything about the brand, and any question you have, she knows it. She knows the answer, and it is genuinely fascinating. For a designer, it's like I could spend forever there, which I know is a weird thing to say, but it's true. This is what Bourneville looked like in 1909, and actually it doesn't look very much different now. Here's a little model village of a little model village, basically. This was a big sort of plastic thing in a see-through case that we took a picture of at Bourneville. It employed something like 13 or 14,000 people at one point, and they still make a lot of the chocolate there. This was it in 2020 when we went. And the strangest thing I think about this picture is that it's sunny in England. But apart from that, the lampposts, the signage, the railings, pretty much everything from the train station onwards. It's a good 5-minute walk. Everything's purple. It's Cadbury Town. And you really see that. You really see that in the people. You really see that in everything you see. That's the factory where they still make a lot of the chocolate. It smells amazing. Look at that typography on the Cadbury. How nice is that? Again, as a designer, I could just stare at that all day. Socially frowned upon though. And obviously we had a serious look at the archive, which is business not to be taken lightly. Very, very serious business. One of those is my boss, Nick, who will love me putting this into the presentation. So I'll move on quickly from it. We found countless stories from the past, beautiful old packs, products, advertising. Look at the type in some of that. Look at the imagery. Look at the look at well, for me, it brings back memories of childhood, and it won't do for everyone. There's a square egg there called a squeg, which is really super fucking weird, and I've never heard of that before, and I don't remember it, but it's pretty cool. There's loads and loads of imagery, advertising, comms, loads of beautiful illustrations that are borderline kind of weird. You know, a hare driving around a child with a massive Easter egg in the back is one of the stranger images, but you look at it and it kind of doesn't strike you as strange, weirdly. It's just a beautiful, beautiful drawing. And a lot of this stuff used to be on the packaging. Amazing, just amazing, amazing place. And this absolutely massive egg that was actually on the floor at the time, and I almost fell over it, and I didn't put that big crack into it, but just in context, that's somebody's arm. It is an absolutely massive Easter egg, and it's nearly 100 years old. Believe it or not, that is from 1935. Isn't that crazy? 1935. Crazy. Massive egg. So then we got into it. Then we rolled our sleeves up, and we were like, okay, let's have a look at the timeline of mini eggs. And we found that it dates right the way back from 1967. So it's old, you know, not as old as dairy milk, not as old as some of the products within the Cadbury portfolio, but it's old. You know, 1967, that's a long time ago, right? The Beatles, the World Cup, other things. So we had a look at the memory structures, or the distinctive memory structures that were making these up, or the codes maybe, or the colors, or the type that were making this up. What's the creative palette? What's the big idea? And we wanted to track it all along. So, you know, there's a hit of yellow there. It's fresh, it's positive, there's quirky, sort of childlike type that I love. There's a literal story around, you know, a nest with eggs, which is kind of really weird when you think about it, and when you don't, it's not. Quite a big expanse of white as well. And then when we get into the early 70s, there's this beautiful Gothic typography, you know, and it's a completely yellow pack. This, again, beautiful illustration that's I think is really timeless. You could put that on anything now and it would look awesome. But they're still focusing on this, you know, literal bird's nest story. So it's literally eggs, you know, actual eggs in a nest. Beautiful Cadbury signature as well there. And one thing we actually wanted to bring back with the rebrand, which is one thing I didn't mention, which was about bringing the script back so it became a signature again and not a corporate logo. So it's good enough to come from the hand of the Cadbury family. Really important. 1984, the early 80s, you know, no bunnies on this one, thankfully, but the nest story's gone, and in its place is this abstract pile of floating, half-eaten eggs, quite delicate pink typography. The yellow is maintained. Massive descriptor. It's actually over time becoming more specific, from sugar-coated with milk chocolate to solid milk chocolate eggs with a crisp sugar shell. Maybe it's something legal, who knows? And then something a bit more familiar, you know, mini eggs, as we kind of start to be more familiar with it. You know, it's much more familiar in terms of its distinctive memory structures because it's been built over time, a long time. A bigger presence of master brand Cadbury Purple. The glass and a half is introduced for the first time, indicating quality and maybe a change in recipe. Playful purple typography that over time feels very recognizable to me and to the guys and to the team. So yellow takes up kind of, you know, 75% of the pack, a pile of abundant eggs, you know, no descriptor at all of a sudden. So something very legal suddenly comes off the pack completely, and you realize, well, it wasn't legal. Why did they do that? Weird. And then we go kind of early 2000s, all design's cyclical, right? So one day we'll look at this and be like, this is beautiful. I don't think we're quite there yet. You know, I think we, you know, in the early 2000s, we go into this kind of maximalist, you know, photoshopping kind of time. We've got Mr. Cadbury's parrot on there. I like him. And it goes backwards a bit. You know, some of those distinctive memory structures have been lost a little bit. It lacks a strong relationship to packs in the past, but retains that presence of yellow, which is important, and a hit of Cadbury Purple. The glass and a half and signature are very, very small all of a sudden. Mr. Cadbury parrot, he's big. He's holding the pile of eggs or juggling them. There's no real product shot. And typography to me feels like it lacks a bit of distinction. It's lost some of what it was building there for a long time. Beginning of the Photoshop era. One day we'll look at that and we'll be like, that's amazing. A return to the similarities in 2016. I mean, I've had good friends that redesigned this at the time, which means I definitely can't slag it off, and I wouldn't. There's a bit of a return to that 90s pack. There's a bit of a 90s kind of, you know, there are similarities. If you take that 2001 version out. This explosion device that I was talking about, you know, it places Easter and the occasion of Easter, season of Easter, firmly at the center of the story. There are various joy elements, you know, due to the old positioning, you know, a curly C as a spring, you know, springing off. This little guy, the little bunny, you know, sort of popping up from the bottom of the pack. Lots of general movement. It's quite frenetic. It does sit a bit awkwardly in the confines of the pack. You can see how, you know, through different flavors and different formats, of which there are hundreds for Cadbury usually, the more modular you design it for Cadbury, the better chance you have of creating something that can be rolled out successfully, essentially. So what's that big idea, you know, that we were talking about earlier? Mini eggs are the icon of Easter. So we need to express the purest form of what mini eggs are all about. And for us, it was about the icon of generosity. You know, everything we talked about the meaning of what Easter is and the meaning of actually what mini eggs are within that time. You know, if there is generosity inherent to mini eggs, there's generosity and goodness inherent to Cadbury, it makes sense. How can we make it feel like it's familiar and never been changed? How do we look at that timeline? We wanted to make people forget that any of those packs have ever been there before it. You know, it's mini eggs and it looks as it always should have looked. That was our kind of little, you know, mini egg brief. You know, let's make it look familiar. Let's make it look like it should have always looked like that. What a great thing. So what is it that makes mini eggs iconic? There is iconic quality, taste and goodness of Cadbury chocolate at the heart of every mini egg. I think that's captured on the left there with the signature locked up with the egg shape. There is a word mark or a logo that leverages the playful nature of the product. Now, for me, there wasn't anything wrong with the 2016 design in terms of typography. It was playful. It's got little eggs on the tittle of the eye. It's got little egg shapes in the bowls of the G. It's playful and it's really nice and it's really familiar. And to me, it feels really iconic. There's no need to change it fundamentally. And we have a product that everybody knows and shares generously and absolutely loves. I guarantee you that if you haven't had mini eggs before, you cannot eat one. You have to eat at least 3 packs in one go. It's impossible to eat one. The color palette, it signals the arrival of spring, Easter, hope, positivity. There are really strong memory structures there that would suggest not to change that, and we wouldn't. So those are the things, those are the 4 things that make Cadbury mini eggs iconic for us. After, you know, much deliberation and much conversation and a lot of background work. You know, this is for all intents and purposes, not the biggest project we've ever done, but you know, within Cadbury, it's actually a smaller project, but the process and the love we poured into it, it's the same across everything we work on. Each one has their own story, and it's been amazing. So what did the final design look like? An interesting thing, it looks like this. An interesting thing is that it didn't change fundamentally from the very, very first round to the final design that sits on shelf. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we kind of, I think, probably hit the jackpot in terms of how to make that pack look familiar and how to make it look like it should have always looked. For me, and we had 3 routes. You know, the one regret I have is showing those other 2, because we should have just shown this route. This is what Cadbury mini eggs should always look like. And I would change that if we were to do it again. We would just show this, and we would, you know, we would have the same result. We tweaked the yellow, we tweaked some colors. We had to put a key line around the mini eggs typography. We had to scale elements. We had to introduce a couple of looks, but fundamentally, at a squint, it's not any different. So the design held. it went down really well, and there it is, you know, on the right there. So, you know, super exciting, and very rare for a design not to, certainly in my experience, it's very rare for it not to change that much, you know, which is great. So we have this sort of familiar look and feel. We have sort of a distinctiveness about it through years and years and years of developing memory structures and assets and equity. And it feels iconic. It feels iconically Mini Eggs, and it feels right. And I think sometimes as a designer, you just know when you've got it right, and you can't even articulate it. That's what we've got with Mini Eggs. And massive thanks to the team who worked on it. It was led alongside myself by Lauren Connor, who works at Bulletproof, alongside a guy called Rich Anderson, who has worked on a lot of stuff with me, FAW included. Great team of really talented people, and a client with vision and trust, which makes the process fun. Photography, we shoot all of the photography for Cadbury across the board in-house. Thousands and thousands of shots of Cadbury chocolate, and none of it goes in the bin because we eat it all. I put 2 stone on during COVID, and I've had to lose it again by banning myself from chocolate. But we shoot everything in-house, and you know, beautiful chocolate shots here. You know, you can see the striations of the chocolate, which is a very clever word I learned, which is about basically seeing the imperfections of the chocolate, seeing the detail in the chocolate, the crumbs. You know, at Cadbury, we're proud of our imperfections. You know, if it's too perfect, it's not real. We've got to be real. So it's a lovely shot. You know, making more of the product, locking it up with the Cadbury signature, as I was talking before, bringing some movement and some quirk to it. We're big at Bulletproof on bringing movement to stuff, and for it being, you know, holistically part of the big idea. And then some just sort of proof of concept road testing, what we would call road testing, touch points, just as a bit of proof of concept. You know, how do you start to use the assets? How does the equity that we're developing start to work across the board? You know, can you do clever little things, or sort of little smile in the mind things? You know, can you make an exclamation mark? Can, you know, how does the glue, the creative glue that you're creating, sit? How does it work together? Does it work? Because if it doesn't, you're in trouble and you've got to go back. So that's kind of how it ended up looking. That is the final design. As I say, very, very similar to the first round. And what was most important was that we did our due diligence, we did our background work, we did our archiving, and it really paid off for us, I think, in this instance. And it's already been out on shelf. This was launched actually, I think, in January, so it's nearly been out a year. And we've got some early figures on it, which I'll go through in a minute. Don't worry, it's not as boring as it sounds, hopefully. And this is what it looks like in the competitor set. You know, so actually none of the competitors are yellow, really. There's a lot of blue knocking around. I quite like the M&M's pack. Everything else is quite busy, to be honest. There's a lot going on, and we wanted to simplify, clean. You know, you don't need to shout at shelf. You just remain calm. You'll attract attention at shelf, and that's been our approach for well a lot of stuff actually, and just be really true to the assets that you have. So that's the current design, next to the final design, and you know, it does feel calmer. It does feel like it's been through the lens of our new brand world. It does feel generous, and it does feel like it comes from a world of goodness, and not from a world of joy, like, you know, like it would be on the left. So 2 different filters bring 2 different answers, and neither of them are wrong. It's just, you know, what does the brand stand for at that point in time? So it's lovely to be at a point in time with it, which is, again, it's humbling. You know, it's an amazing journey to be part of. You know, it's incredible. So at Bulletproof, we're also invested in commercial results, which is good because it could have gone the wrong way. And I'm glad I'm not the creative director that absolutely tanked Mini Eggs, which is a relief. Some early sales results and sales figures. You know, it's up 30%. Versus, you know, so there's a big, you know, obviously COVID has really impacted everything. It's impacted life. But to be up 15%, up 8 million versus Easter 2019, which was COVID-free, is a massive win. seems a massive big win, which is amazing. And those are very early results, I think, from only the UK market. So the bag the bag retained its position as the #1 SKU in Easter across all traditional Easter, and growing 2 million year on year, which is an incredible thing. These percentages are massive for us and for Cadbury. So some good little stats there, even though they're early on. We also helped advise and set the vision alongside HarperCollins for a little cookbook, a Mini Eggs cookbook, and there have been, nearly 1,500 pieces of coverage in the media for that cookbook across national, consumer, regional, social, which apparently is good. And an influencer program with 3 influencers to host Instagram lives, which apparently is cool. And what were they doing? They were creating a recipe from the cookbook for the audience to recreate at home. So nice and simple, nice and fun, and something that actually is, you get a bit back. So it's worth doing. So lovely little book there that feels really part of that brand world, of that visual identity, which is lovely. Coverage, Dieline being the most important, but the design press picks up on it, and there's been some great coverage on it, and some really kind things and kind words said about it. As I said before, designing something for such an iconic brand is divisive and can bring, I think it's fair to say, a lot of negativity, as well as from our own community, as well as good positive reinforcement. And it's all good. I don't go home crying if I see something negative. It makes me want to better myself, and it makes me want the team to be better, and it pushes us and it inspires us. So yeah, bring it on. I love it. Then there's memes. The true test is memes, right? That's where people go nuts. So there was a Bible of cookbooks from the Archbishop of Banterbury, which is actually it's quite a big account in the UK for memes, and one that I follow because I love memes. And I think my favorite was, obviously scrolling through the comments, that's my favorite bit. How can it be part of a fucking Easter line if they're releasing it in fucking December 2020 is really fucking me up. You're not alone, mate. I like that though. So thank you everyone involved in the brand. Thank you to the amazing clients at Cadbury, of which we couldn't have done any of this without. Thank you to Lauren and Rich and the team. So it's quite a big team who put everything into the project. Thank you to Dieline, Jess and Andrew, for giving us this platform, for telling our little story. There's our Instagram handle if you wanna follow us. I'm involved in getting stuff up on our Instagram. So again, be kind, but you don't have to be. And that's all. And I guess it's question time.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. It's been a very long day here, but we're all right. We're okay.
Okay. Yes. I'm in Los Angeles and you're in London, so we've got some time difference between us here, but we're gonna make it work.
All good. All good.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, and we're excited to get some questions here that we've been getting in. So we'll get right to it so people can get their questions answered. The first question we have is, going through the brand archives and previous packaging can be fun, but was there anything in the Cadbury archives that you didn't care for and wanted to avoid?
Well, I always sort of go on about, several times I have now, haven't I, about how amazing it was. And I think that's the kind of overarching thing. There was lots that wasn't relevant. There wasn't anything that was kind of almost wrong, just stuff that isn't relevant, both for the rebrand. I mean, there was as I said, there was a massive giant egg on the floor. like 100 years old, stuff. But even stuff that was not quite right or not quite relevant, I think we learned from. Like the original packs were like made from velvet and cost the equivalent of something like a month's wages, which really sort of goes or flies in the face of everything the company stood and stands for now. So, we discounted that really quickly. So there was, I mean, there's so much stuff there that, it's everything you look at has a story to tell.
Fun. So we have some questions here from Carly. She's asking, how important do you feel it is to incorporate product shots into retail packaging?
Really good question. So it depends. Obviously, it depends what it is. I am not a fan of it generally, because I think, being brand first and being iconic with the assets that you have is the way to go. Having said that, for Cadbury, one of the two things that we had to get for the brief was one about like raising credibility for Cadbury, and the second thing was raising taste appeal and making it more meaningful for people. It's already a meaningful brand. So for Cadbury, it became crucial, became really important, and that was when we brought Chunk back. And from that, it set principles for actually how we shoot Cadbury across the board over hundreds and hundreds of SKUs. So for Cadbury, it's crucial. But generally, with other packaging, possibly not so much. Depends on the brand, I think.
Good. That's a good question. Good answer. Thank you. How many? Someone has a question about the creative process and how many final designs were delivered. That's always like a really interesting question because everyone's curious about everyone's workflow.
Yeah, well, we had as I said, we had a great team on it that worked across the brand, across Cadbury, so knew the brand really well. So kind of went in swinging, I guess. And we had, I think I said that we had something like 3 or 4 routes on the table. And really, it was always one. We just knew that one was right. We knew that it used its assets iconically. We knew that the story it was telling was pithy, and it just felt right. And sometimes you just know that, to the point where we shouldn't have really presented the other routes because we believed in that one so much, and very much said that in the presentation. In terms of actual designs, it changed very little from start to finish. But what we had to deliver are, in the UK, it covers loads of SKUs, loads of formats. I think there are something like, I don't know, maybe 20 SKUs, maybe more. So it has to be translatable and modular to go across all of those very extreme, formats. Yeah, it's quite a few.
Quite a few. Great. This is a really great question. During the process, was there conversation about moving away from Easter due to Christmas ties? In today's day and age, brands seem hesitant to tie themselves to one religion and its holidays for fear of being called out or canceled. Was that a concern?
A little bit. I think a little bit of the brief was about. I mean, Easter's so big here. That we have a holiday, and it isn't really as much of an issue in the UK, but it is. It does have the tendency. It's always a conversation, right? And we wanted to make sure that actually it could work all year round if necessary. So the last iteration had a really big egg on it. It had a bunny on it. We wanted to sort of pull away from that and just be a bit more iconic with our assets and a bit more single-minded, so that if they did want to do something like that, actually it wouldn't be an issue. And it also felt a bit more sort of agnostic in terms of seasonality. So it still has the cues for Easter, but maybe not as explicit. So yeah, possibly, I think. Yeah. Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question because you have to find sort of the balance between how things are moving in the world. But that was a great answer. Thank you. Obviously, you did a redesign for Cadbury Design Milk as well, but how difficult is it to bring in the visual identity and brand world to another existing product in the brand's portfolio?
Yeah, another really good question. quite difficult.
Challenging.
And at the same time, fine, because once you have the anchor point for the brand and the big idea for the brand and the purpose for the brand, and you work that through principles and a brand world and a creative palette and the assets, you know, there's a real process that I personally like to follow. Actually, you then know how to underpin it with the main brand. And then, what for Cadbury, for example, there's you know, hundreds of personality brands, what we call personality brands, Mini Eggs being one of them. You put that brand through that filter, and you also take its heritage into account, and you know, everything that it's been through and everything that it's loved for, and actually what you get out of the other end. It sounds very process driven, but it's not as process driven as that. Actually, you get something that just feels right, and it's quite an emotional thing. It isn't, you know, mathematical. It's not forensic. Yeah, really good question.
Yeah, it's you know, it's tough to kind of have a cohesive look, but still be different. It's just added challenges to everything. Yeah. For a small brand, how much impact can rebranding have without an advertising strategy?
Again, it depends on the brand. If you're talking about, you know, a Cadbury, then it's already on the shelves. You know, for a small brand, I think it's asking. It depends what it is, because if it's something that is truly different as a proposition, if it's something interesting, if it's redefining a category or just turning something on its head, or is something new and different, it can do a lot. It's you know, we've seen brands in the past that, you know, you guys have showcased and you guys have had talks on that have been very, very powerful with very, very small ad budgets, basically, and over time they get bigger. So yeah, it's absolutely possible, but the product has to be great, the proposition has to be great, the big idea has to be great. It all has to kind of work in unison to be successful. For Cadbury, the problem's the opposite, which is it's already very big. How do you drive more meaning, and how do you drive individuality into all of the different ranges while making it look cohesive, knowing that there's already big advertising budgets there? So really different kind of ends of the spectrum that come from opposite ends, really.
Yeah, it's just overall just trying to challenge such a big brand with so much heritage and trying to find a really good position for it in the market. Well, I'm so happy that you took the time to answer some Q&As, and there's more coming, but we're running out of time. I'm gonna put in Bulletproof's Instagram in the chat. You can give them a follow, and then you can also probably direct message them, and they'll be happy to answer any of the questions and anything that anyone has after this live Q&A. I wish we had more time, because I feel like everyone has a lot of great questions. But Jamie, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I know we had we wanted to get this live sooner, but it's kind of great because Easter's coming, so everybody's kind of inspired by the design right now. So thank you so much for your time for Bulletproof. And we're going to have this, if you missed the beginning of this, or you want to see it again, we're going to have it on the Dieline in a couple hours, so you can take a look at it again. But like I said, thank you so much, Jamie, for having taken the time to do this for us.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks everyone, and thanks for watching. Hopefully I didn't go on for too long, and hopefully it was interesting. It was good fun doing it. So thanks again. It was great.
Great. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, guys.